Hello, welcome to another video where I'll be explaining or maybe somehow would be sharing my knowledge on WebDriverIO, which is one of the famous JS-based automation tool. And I got an opportunity to actually learn and explore this. I always wanted to explore this just to see what is the capabilities, what kind of facility it actually offers. It actually is a wrapper of Selenium. I would say custom wrapper of Selenium in JavaScript. So it's very famous. It's open source and it has very good community support as well. It's there. It's pretty mature framework. It's there since a long time. The question is why WebDriver IO? When there are a lot of other better tools, modern tools like Playwright, Cypress are there. Thing is that two reasons. One is that I got some opportunity to work on this project where I just wanted to explore this before I actually work on. Second thing is that I wanted to actually explore this so that I can have a pretty good idea about WebDriver IO, what is the pros, cons, and I can do a good judgment while comparing to other JS-based tools like Cypress and Playwright for now. I would say the JS-based tools, famous JS-based tools for this competitor for this tool would be Playwright and Cypress for now, though there are a few more are there, but I would say strong competitor. Now, I spent a day exploring this and looking at different features that it offers. What is the similarity between the raw Selenium versus this, and what is pros cons? So I have overall I have my judgment. I can now judge this tool not clearly, but I have pretty fair idea to say a couple of things, whether it's good or bad, or in what context it is good, what context it's bad, and all this stuff. So overview, this tool basically actually can support automating any web application built using React, Vue, or AngularJS. Apart from this, it also supports this is the catch point, right? So this is kind of a all-in-one tool in the JS ecosystem that can support web application, that can also support hybrid native mobile applications, okay, and also supports desktop application, but provided that that is built with Electron JS, right? Just for an example, Postman is a desktop application, but it is actually built with Electron.js, and that supports that, which is nowadays it's very common to have a web applications built with Electron.js. Another good example would be Notion JS, Notion application as well. Second thing is that it is pretty famous or popular while doing this E2E testing and component testing as well. So that is the selling point of this WebDriver IO tool. Which other comparing to the other frameworks like Playwright, Playwright doesn't have native support of mobile apps, though it supports the responsive web design, but it doesn't have native support. And if similarly, Cypress also doesn't have it. Now, if you are someone who needs or one tool that can do all these things, then WebDriver is the next best option. Like if you do not need mobile, then I don't suggest this. I would strongly suggest the Playwright for various other reasons, but I'm not talking in this video. Let's also talk more about WebDriver IO and how. So I basically followed this documentation and try to build a basic framework with a small use case, and then I just want to try out end-to-end flow, how it works, how easy it is, all that stuff. So I have kind of mixed review on this after, because I have already worked on Playwright, I have already worked on Cypress, and then coming back here, hence this the differences, pros, cons are a bit different experience for me. Now coming to the documentations, first thing first, it is very detailed document, but comparing to the current documentation that is being done by Cypress and especially Playwright, both are amazing, and the documentation is pretty great. The experience that you see, you won't feel like going to any other tutorial or blogs or videos to actually look at it, because they have pretty organized and complete document. It's pretty updated. However, in this contrast, WebDriverIO, I felt a lot of resistance where you would, of course, there is a search. You can simply search over here and you can find it. However, but the organization that they have done is not that great. You will have to struggle a bit to find what you are looking for. There are a lot of things already there, but you might not find it in this their structure on the left side here. And there is some basic stuff also. It's very difficult because it's always it's a community product, right? So I'm not saying that it's someone who is responsible, but it's all about collaboration and all. But that is one of the cons from the documentation. So I simply had to go ahead and start with installation. So I made some documentation using Notion. I used Notion here and I made this documentation of whatever I have learned so far. So with this, I just went ahead and just tried installation. It is very simple. Simply you have to run this command npm init WebDriverIO and you are good to go. It will ask you some of the questions of what are the test runner you are going to use, what is the framework you are using, TypeScript, JavaScript, and what are the other services that you want to actually install. And after answering a couple of questions, it will simply give you a full-fledged with example. Also, it actually gives you example of page object model where you'll have a full ready to use setup of a WebDriverIO, and that will look something like this. And here, if you see this on the structure, it a bit, I have changed a little bit, but pretty much similar, you'll get it. All right. So on this, let's see, if you see, this is, I have added Allure also I have already got out of the box. After while I installed this, I chose Allure as a report, so it actually installed the related packages and all. Then node modules, anyway, there is nothing to worry about. On the test side, this is the important stuff. On the test, there is a folder page objects and there is something called spec. In the specs, we keep all the test cases, and in the page objects we keep all the page objects like general page object pattern, right? So in the it is already created by WebDriverIO out of the box. Okay. And then this is one simple test, it is already created by them, so you can simply use it. Okay. Apart from this, I did some of the changes here, good stuff, bad stuff and all. After learning a couple of things, I'll explain in a bit. And apart from that, I have also added a lint. Okay, so this lint is nothing but this is also provided by WebDriverIO, but lint ESLint is something very popular among JavaScript ecosystem. So we can, the ESLint itself is a very big package and utility that helps us to actually streamline our coding standards and all the stuff. We can do a lot of rules and all, but to simplify this linting stuff, WebDriverIO has its own basic linting rules already applied, and you simply have to import that, extend that lint rules from WebDriverIO. And anyways, everything else is as a usual package or JSON and all. It is always with our this kind of JavaScript based family. And then this is something very important on the WebDriverIO. It is a config file, right? The WebDriver is entire WebDriver framework is controlled by this single config file. That is where we can give a lot of options. Everything is customizable, controllable, and it is also given there. It is also given out of the box when we create the WebDriverIO project. But for the simplicity and for the more flexibility, what I have done is that I have created multiple config file to manage different environments. Generally, they give you only one config file, but we have in real time, we actually have to manage multiple config file for different environments. So this is how we can create. So I have made it and a bit of on myself. Right. After this, let's go back here. That's the installation part. And how do we run the test? To run the test, simply you just have to use npx this command, npx command, and npx WDIO run, and then you have to provide the config file, right? So the WebDriverIO actually needs this config file, and then from the config file, it will decide what are the spec file where and all. So let's first look at this command. So this will run all the test cases that is present inside test. So on this, let's go ahead and check this config file. So this decides because everything is already added here. If you see here, The runner is local, and I'm running on the local system, and the project is given tsconfig. So what is tsconfig? Tsconfig is nothing but, if we are working on a TypeScript based compiler, which is nothing but a TypeScript is nothing but it is actually a type-safe compiler for a JavaScript. Ideally, it actually transpile or it compiles. We can say, we generally use the term transpile, which is actually converting the TypeScript file to JS file. Is that then this we have to actually provide this tsconfig. So tsconfig is something that everything that you would like to actually provide the configuration. What are the directory that you have your TypeScript file? You can configure everything. What kind of files you want to actually compile or transpile, where is the directories, and you can actually do a lot of configuration using the tsconfig to make it very simple. A lot of things are already coming by, it actually comes along with WebDriverIO project creation out of the box. Few things I have just added and changed a little bit, because when I selected TypeScript as a framework, it actually gave me this file by default, WebDriverIO. So I didn't have to do a lot of stuff here. So here everything was there. Few things I changed was like this thing, right? This is very important. Include. So when I say include, there are three things I have included. One thing is that test. I want that any file, any TS file, that is TypeScript file, inside test directory, I would like to transpile it. I would like that TS file to be converted to JS. Okay, that is why I have given test underscore. Double star is nothing but all the subdirectories, and then star.ts, any ts file that you find it will transpile it. Okay, because if you see here, except this test I also have few other ts files. If you see here, this I also want that this ts should be transpiled. So I added this as a conf.ts star, because I have two files. So it has like dev and local. So I just made it as a star conf.ts. Every conf.ts also it will be. Another thing is that I have also added extra examples. Examples I added it because it's a very good way to actually add some of the code snippets to write, how to write good test cases, what are the good practices that you should use, so that whoever is using your framework should quickly go to that example and simply look at the example and see, understand, yeah, this is the good standard practice actually set enforced by the team. So it is a very quick way to have an example of very commonly used or very good to have code snippets basically, so that nobody has to struggle or ask people here and there and then write a bad code, and then we have to again review them in the code review and all the stuff. We can reduce the learning curve time. So that's the best way to actually have an example as part of the project. So I have, because in the example also I have TS files, so I have added that as also inside it. So overall, what I am saying that everything inside test, everything inside example, and also including this conf file. Tomorrow I might create another config file for another environment. It will automatically be included. That means the TS config decides that these are the files to be transpiled. Anything that I would like to exclude, yes, of course. Node modules are nothing but whenever we install a lot of packages, it actually goes inside this, and we do not absolutely need it. Node modules are not needed for at all. So this should be kept in a local system only. We should not push it to Git. So I wanted to exclude it. Do not go to the node modules, do not transpile anything. So I excluded that as well. In git ignore also I have excluded that node modules. So I'm excluding node modules. Also, I'm excluding LUR results, because report, nobody pushes the report to the Git repository. So I'm just excluding that as well. And DS store is nothing but some for this VS Code. Okay. Apart from that, this is TS config. This is all about TS config. Nothing much here. If you see by default, the types checks are like WebDriverIO by default gives Mocha framework. I'm currently using Mocha framework, and all other stuff. Everything is by default, but these are the important stuff. Coming to the next one. Yeah. So that's how the npx that run this WebDriverIO. Let's go back to WebDriverIO again. This part, and next part is that spec file. Next important part is that when we run this command, this all things happens. It comes to the configuration file, looks at all its configurations, and it finds the spec file. Where is it located? We have to say where your test cases are there. Generally, as per the standard of WebDriverIO, we write all our spec file inside a spec folder. If otherwise, we have to explicitly, explicitly write it here. You can have your own folder wherever you want to have it, but make sure to define it here. Otherwise, WebDriverIO will not be able to find your tests. Okay, so see, if you see here, all the specs files are inside root directory. Dot star is dot slash is nothing but root directory, and then test, and then specs. So I'm not giving page objects, so it won't look for a test in page objects. Okay, and inside specs, it will check for all the spec directory, all the subdirectories, because I might have to have create folder inside this based on the feature, based on the workflow. So it will look for everything inside a spec. So that's a very important part. And then I don't have anything to exclude it for now. Okay, so next important thing is that parallelization. This is what important stuff. By default, WebDriverIO runs in parallel, but one catch here is that it only runs the parallel thread per spec file. So currently I have only one spec file. So even though I give it a 3-4 threads, it will only run only one at a time. If I have 10 test cases, everything will be sequential, not parallel. It is not like a TestNG and JUnit. So WebDriverIO especially, not other ones. So WebDriverIO, I found that it actually creates a different thread for only spec file. So if I have 2 spec file, it will create 2 threads. If I have 5 spec file and actually I configure here 3, that means for 5 spec, it will first run 3 in parallel, and after some of this done, then it will pick up the next. So this is how we control the threads. Okay, this is something new that I got to know from the WebDriverIO. And here in the capability section, we can give all the browsers. So currently I'm giving only as a Chrome, but I can also uncheck this. If I uncheck this and have a parallel instance, then it will spawn each and every browser at once. Okay, so this parallel thread. So for browser also, it actually spawns another parallel thread. So that is also important. And then log level, we all know about log levels, base URL. So this is where I'm configuring the application base URL. Currently, I'm running one application on localhost. So let's take this application. There is application that I'm running on the localhost. Let me open this quickly. Yeah, so this is a Cypress application test dummy application that I'm running on localhost just to test this thing. So this is base URL. So this is good part. Here you can simply provide your base URL here, but any other stuff like your login, product page, logout page, cart page, those slash the page name, right, that can be handled in the page objects. So this is only base. After this, whatever comes should be inside your page objects. So that's the whole idea of it. And this is the default timeout and all the stuff, retry count, everything is here. We can configure everything inside this config file. And framework, what kind of framework you are using. Currently I'm using Mocha as a test runner framework. And here reporters, in the reporters I'm using Allure report. I can also configure what is the report, where should my report be. So this is the very simple way to configure this stuff. And yeah, apart from this, nothing much. We can also talk more about what happens after and before. It is very similar to the TestNG iTest listener. What happens on test, after test, success and all, everything is at once. The good part is here in the config file itself, we can do a lot of control. If you see here, we can also take a screenshot after every failure. So we can configure here as well. That is good part. So everything is configured in a single config file, which is also comes out of the box. That is about config. The next part is that yeah, so there are various ways to run tests. If you run this one, it will run all the test cases present inside spec. And if you want to run only one particular spec, then we have to use this flag called -- spec and then name of the suite. That is one. And another thing is that it by default runs on headful mode. If you want headless, then you can simply parameterize, send a parameter headless, then what is true or false, right? Like that. So that is about running test case. Let's, I think I already talked about tsconfig. that is about TypeScript configuration, and then let's little bit talk about package.json. This is very standard for any Node.js projects, but with respect to the WebDriverIO here, package.json, everything comes by default out of the box whenever you install WebDriverIO, which is good part. A few things that I had to modify is this script. Okay, so instead of running this WebDriverIO, this command, right, when we are running the test, instead of this, what we can do is that we can use this script thing. Let me show you here. What I generally do is that npm run and WDIO run this, right? WDIO, and then you have to give the IO, then local dot config conf dot ts. Okay, npm run WDIO test. Okay, so this is okay, I think it's npx WDIO run. Okay, npx WDIO run, and then the name of WDIO file. Okay, I think so. You have to type all these commands. Sometimes you already saw, right? You might be making a spelling mistake. You might be making leaving the some optional flag and all. To simplify it, this kind of command, we can actually have scripts here. So the scripts are nothing but a kind of a alias to have reduce the readability and usability of it. So what I did, instead of typing all these command, I simply have something called test in my local. So in my test local, if I type just this test local, it will simply run this command for me. So this is how I would do. So I would write to npm run test local. That's it. I don't have to worry about all WDIO run here, this flag, that flag. Simply I run it. It will exactly do the same command what I did just some time back. Okay, so that's how this script helps us. It is not the WebDriverIO things. It is basic our JavaScript based stuff. All right. So apart from this, one good stuff is that when we have WebDriverIO, we only have one config. I wanted two config. Now, what is the best way to actually handle multiple environments? Like this, have a different configuration file with different environment name. Now have a script here. It is very good. So if I want to run on dev, I simply have to use here, instead of local, I will have dev, and it will automatically pick up the dev one. So if you have a more environment, simply create another script. That's it. So no need to bother about stuff, right? Simply, so we don't have to do any other conditions and all. So very simple, out of the box from package JSON, we can simply control it. That's a good part about it. So it is all about this running the test tsconfig package.json. And also we talked about already WebDriverIO config file. So base URL, how we are giving it, and this is the script. Just now I explained it, how many environments you want to actually do it. Now let's take a look at the best practices. Their documentations are there. They have some best practices here, and then from there I picked up a couple of things. One thing is that wait strategy. Wait strategy is nothing. WebDriverIO have a built-in wait strategy. You don't have to explicitly wait for some of the elements to load. They actually load it. They wait for automatically. These are a couple of things that they have suggested to use it. So instead of having a button to check whether it is there or not, and then checking there, so they are expecting, simply expect a button to be displayed, right? So when you are using this test runner, currently we are using Mocha. So in the Mocha itself, you can simply have it expect and then give a locator to be displayed. So it basically actually waits automatically out of the box using WebDriverIO. Okay, so this Mocha and all, they are coming from WebDriverIO. This is not built-in separate explicit Mocha. This is customized Mocha within WebDriverIO. That is when they work well with the WebDriverIO. Okay, that is one thing. And similarly, if you want to simply click a button, simply await, click a button. You don't have to wait for the button to be displayed and then click. No need. You don't need this line at all. So people use it. They first assert it whether it is displayed or not, and only then click. They say that only this button itself waits for it. No need to extra have wait. So this way, what we can do is we can actually optimize our execution. It can reduce little bit of few milliseconds or few seconds of time. So these are some of the good practices. We have to read it, and they are pretty good as well in the documentation. Another thing, very important, awesome thing is that ESLint that I already talked about a little bit, but let me give a little detail on that. ESLint is something that linting. We use SonarLint, ESLint, and a lot of stuff to enforce some of the coding standards, so that people are actually having a standard across the coding. People use semicolon, they don't use double quote, or some use single quote. So you can define your own standard using this ESLint RC, right? This is the use. But to simplify this, WebDriverIO has given already a what do you call that? Where is that? Best practices, I would say. Yeah, somewhere they have given. I don't find it properly. That's what I say. So they say that simply have a file, ESLint configuration file. ESLint itself is a very different concept. They have a huge stuff there. But what they are saying, simply have a configuration file, just like tsconfig. ESLint also has a configuration file like this. Simply they are saying extend this ESLint recommended and use this plugin WebDriverIO. It means that all the rules that is defined for this plugin recommended section will be applied automatically. You don't have to specify your own rule, because I haven't specified any more rules here. Okay, so this takes care of everything. And what are the things I will explain? Then parser. These are the few things that I did some modification. Let's take a look. What are those? Okay, this is what I did ESLint. I installed ESLint from WDIO, not explicit ESLint. Okay, that's the important part here. And then what I do is that what they say to run the check ESLint, if you want to actually check for the linting, right? Once you install it, it doesn't automatically do the checks. You have to run a command, right? So let's say that I go to my test cases here, and currently I run this command. The command here is that what I again did is, if you go to package.json, I actually created another alias. The command for ESLint is that ESLint, and then you have to give a file name. Okay, every time you want to check for it, right? So what I have done is I have given test and then all the file. Inside test, whatever the files are there, TS files are there, you should check for the linting. Okay, so simple. It's very easy to use command. So I don't have to now give a name of the file directory every time I want to check for lints. So I simply have an alias, just like I explained about this. Now linting. So what I generally have to do is that similarly npm run lint. That's it. It will simply execute this command, and it will check all the files inside this test if there is any coding error or standard formatting and anything. So for now, I do not have any issue here. If you see, everything is all cool. Now let's go ahead and do some changes. Now the ESLint that is provided by WebDriverIO says that uh, you should always use await along with expect. Every expect statement should have a await, right? That's what if you see it, the moment I removed that await, it complains about me. So, and missing await before this, and it is coming from WebDriver ESLint, which is cool, right? So by this, everyone, you actually instantly you get the error, and you will simply use await, right? And these are some of the good things that about ESLint, to enforce it in any projects, to have a very good coding standard and enforce it pretty nice your what you call that your coding patterns and all, right? So like this, you can have explicit rule set here, but I do not want to make it very complicated. I wanted to have very simple linting rules. Okay, and also to mention that if you can check in your code with this error as well, it is not going to stop you unless you actually make a strict rule saying that do not allow it to commit the code in your local or maybe in the CI. We can also define that if you have a ESLint error, then do not allow the user to commit or push the code. That also can be done. So that is up to us, right? How strictly we want to enforce the rule. But we should work, I mean, religiously. If we have any error, it is our duty to fix it. Also, during code review, also we might see this kind of issues, right? That is one thing. And another thing is that if we do not have describe it all structure, let's say that I have a file and I do not have describe and it and all stuff, there also it will automatically give you this red flag. So that's how it actually helps you. Okay, so what I was going to show, anyways, in my VS Code it is showing it. Okay, but even though if I run the same command linting, it will give me this error. So I got one missing await before this. This is for the same thing, like that. Okay, so that is one good part that I have actually noticed. Little bit more about ESLint. Once we install this ESLint from WDIO, we can have this kind of lint command for convenience. Okay, after this, it can also provide a lot of options to fix it automatically. There are few comma, colon, and all the stuff. It can fix it automatically. You don't have to go ahead and remove them. But if it is something like await and all, it won't fix this kind of stuff. Very minor things it will fix automatically. Here to look more about it, extends. So in the ESLint, you can extend it. In your one project, you can have multiple ESLints. Why? Because I might have different rule for my test cases. I might have different rules for my page objects. So in that case, you might have different ESLint configuration file within your different directories. So if you have multiple directories, and let's say that you have to use some common rules across all this, what you have to do is that you have to have a base ESLint and then extend that lint inside ESLint. That is how it is used. So that is where extends comes into the picture. So here we are simply using that plugin WebDriverIO and recommended. We are simply extending some of the rules that is defined inside it already out of the box. We are, otherwise I had to write some 20-30 lines of code. So that reduces the coding stuff. And then one more thing is that apart from this, something that I did explicitly is parser, because I'm using TypeScript, and if I don't use this parser, it will actually give me error. Okay, if I don't use parser and if I try to run the lint, if you see here, parsing error. Okay, it is actually giving me error on here, some this stuff. So it does not recognize actually this. Now by this, I'm telling that, hey, parse it using TypeScript. This is my TypeScript project, so you don't have to show me this kind of lint because it is expected in TypeScript, and those are not there in a JavaScript, vanilla JavaScript. Hence now this lint will be gone. Okay, apart from that, something else is that module source type is module, something I have added. What happens if I don't give it? So if you see here, it is complaining about some of the other stuff here, right? That is because the module. Okay, that is because of module. I just had to add it. I'm saying that it is a module, and I'm giving that as a project. So see, this is my TS TypeScript project, and you can find all my TypeScript related configuration from here. So that this linting error lint plugin will go ahead and check the rules configuration that is there here. Based on that, it will give you suggestions, linting errors and all. That's how the ESLint works. And I'm also simply saying that, hey, in the environment, the test run environment, I'm using Mocha as a runner. So anything related to Mocha syntax, it will not give me error. If I don't use something that is not supported by Mocha, it will immediately give me some error saying that, hey, this is not coming under Mocha. So you have to fix it. That's the beauty of this ESLint. So now it should not give any error. Yeah. Now all the errors are gone. These are all some information 1x, right? So that was some of the nice stuff that I noted down. Yeah, I already, yeah. Now let's go and take a look at the page object model. So for the page object model, what they suggest is that you have a base page. This is a base page, and the base page, we have nothing but an open method. This open method accepts a path. You give me a path, and I'll just simply call that. So in the WebDriverIO, to open a website or URL, just like in Selenium, right? WebDriver driver equal to then dot get routine. Here it is browser dot URL and the website. It will open it. But here, if you see this, by having this open and then path, I have to call this open method from my page classes. Let's see and how it is. So this is the page class for login, and I'm extending page just like our general Java page object model. We are extending base page. Why we are extending base page? In the sense, because we can reuse the open method that is there in the base page. Okay, and here, because we are calling super.open, that means it actually goes ahead and let me open this as well. Yeah, so it actually calls this and it asks for a give me a path. And if you notice here, I didn't give path, I only gave a slash. Why? Because my entire base URL is already configured here in my WebDriverIO, right? I showed you here somewhere. Yeah, so base URL is already configured. This is the base URL, and my login URL is also exactly same thing. So nothing, no suffix after this. That is the only reason I just gave it as a slash. If let's say that after this my home page is login.html, then I would have given like this. Okay, so this open method will be called here, and it will open the base URL, then it will append the path, whatever path that you are giving here. But for now, I don't need it. So hence I just gave a slash, that's it. So it opens it. And apart from this, anything else like locator, like it actually uses the get method. We can simply use this direct locator, but for the simplicity, we use get here in the WebDriverIO, and then name of your whatever the locators and all. And then here there is a login. Here I just need username and password like this, simple. It's just like simple page object model. And this is how the test looks like. In the test, what I'm doing is, for each test, what I'm doing, creating a simple, I'm opening the page already, because each of the tests needs that page to be open. And after it is open, I'm keeping it in before each test. And then the next test, this is the valid credentials. So I have to delete this because already it's there. These stuffs are already there. So simply it uses for the valid credentials, and I wanted to make sure that the logout button is displayed, and this is for invalid credentials. So I would expect a error. It should not actually log in. So this is what the typical login test is. Then one thing I notice here is that page object model, locators, and wait strategy. One thing I noticed here is that, as I mentioned in initial thing, WebDriverIO always creates one session per spec file. Okay, just like it creates one thread per spec, it also creates one browser session per spec file. It's like not like TestNG JUnit. You cannot have a before each and expect that it will open different browser for each of these it blocks. No, it won't. It never works like that. What WebDriver recommends is that you should have all your similar tests, same kind of test in one spec file, and other kind of different test in different spec file. For example, these are two different cases. One is that it should log in so that it can go inside the dashboard. Another is that it should not be able to log in. It should still be there in the login page with the errors. Now, in these two things, what was happening was, when even though I used before each with login page opened, it would start with this, it will log in, and then it will end this, it will pass, then it will go to this. Now this guy will also open the same page, and this browser will use the same session, and when it comes with the open, it will be already there in the logged in status, and it will not find this error message because now it is already logged in, and the error message is there in the login page. Now I then searched and found out one hack is that you have to use reload session. Reload session is nothing but it actually clears up the current browser session, and it actually creates a new session. That is the hack that I'm using it. I'm saying this hack because as per the WebDriverIO, this is not recommended. Okay. Because for this login scenario, I needed this, I am using this. If I have any other scenario who all of the scenario needs the user to be logged in, then I won't have to use this. Okay, but ideally in our JavaScript, in Java frameworks, TestNG and all, we always use fresh and new sessions for each test, though it takes some time, but it is a very good approach. So maybe if we want to do that, we have to use this. That is one thing that I have also experienced. uh yes, I think that's pretty much so far for me, and whatever I have done so far, I have some of the boilerplates. I mean, there are so many people who have actually contributed to WebDriverIO, and there are more than 20-30 repository already created by many people, so we can also take a look at that. So I have already done this. Okay, so why this is complaining again? Yeah, so that's pretty much about it, and I just wanted to make sure. Yeah, so let's run it and then again. Let's run once and few errors. Okay. Both of them pass. That's it. Yeah, so a few other things that I might have to do, but yeah, that is it. I think let's also go ahead and allure serve, and this is inside allure results. So let's take a look at allure results as well. How does it look like? It's pretty easy. I didn't have to do any single configuration for allure result, because you just have to pick the report during installation, and this is the only command that you have to use, provided that you already have allure installed in your system. So this is how the allure looks like. That's it. So this is 9 test cases, some of the test cases that if you say play around and all the stuff, unsuccessful login, and it actually takes all that request responses. If you see this, it actually captures all the network responses. Yeah, these are all good stuff actually. All the responses are captured by LO report by default. These are all out of the box, no single configuration needed. So successful also, it deletes is nothing but because of the session that I explained, right? Because this reload session, so it actually deletes it. So if you see the request, delete session, shutdown driver, this, that, and all the stuff. So we can get pretty good insights of it. So that's pretty much it. And we can also see retries, how many times retries and all the stuff happened for test cases. I like this report actually. So that's how it is. So this is the duration and all the stuff. That is it. Thank you.